Only a few years ago, there was a guy who was not just a 5-star recruit, but he was also a McDonald's All-American and ranked as the 6th best overall player in the entire country. Not ranked 6th in his state, but 6th in the entire country. That's insane. And oh yeah, he was already listed at 6'8" in just the 7th grade. Over 84% of 5-star recruits in high school basketball make it to the NBA, and over 90% of the players ranked inside the top 10 make it to the NBA. Everyone thought he was going to be a part of that 90%, but however, he wasn't. He was dominating high school basketball. But ever since then, he's vanished and nobody knows where he is. So therefore, it leaves us with the question today: what really happened to EJ Montgomery? What's good, y'all? I hope you're having a blessed day. I just wanted to drop by and say 100K Matt in the building. We hit 100,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to say before we get into this video, thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. This means so much to me, you don't even understand. I don't want to bore you too much and give you a whole rant or speech. All I'm gonna say is I will be making a 100K special video, and that's gonna be a very special video, and I'm gonna try to have it up in 2 to 3 weeks. Make sure you stay tuned for that. It's gonna be an awesome video, but this is just the beginning. We got to keep grinding. In honor of hitting 100K, I'm going to be following back some of you guys on Twitter. So if you want to follow back, go to my Twitter. It's MattLBG, or you can type in MattBeGreat. I'm going to try to follow back as many as I can. All you got to do is like my most recent tweet. I'm going to throw it up on the screen. Now let's get into the video. There's so much I want to say, but once again, I'm going to just leave it at thank you. Now without further ado, let's get into this story. This video and this story was actually recommended and requested by you guys. Somebody dropped a comment about him and it got a lot of likes, so hey, I'm a fan of the people, I'm gonna give you what you want. I immediately got to researching, and let's just say this story is really chaotic and you're gonna want to pay attention. EJ Montgomery, who is the star of this video, was born on September 12th in 1999. He started his middle school and high school basketball career in Fort Pierce, Florida. Growing up, he wasn't your average kid, and I'm talking about how tall he was. He was always much bigger than his classmates and his peers, so everyone knew he was going to be a basketball star. Or maybe not a star, but they knew he'd be good. His middle school career was very short. He started playing varsity as a 7th grader. Why was he playing varsity as a 7th grader, you asked? Well, it had something to do with him being 6'8". Most 7-footers don't even reach 7 foot until maybe 10th or 11th grade. So for him to be close to 7 foot as a middle schooler is straight up crazy. With him being that young on a varsity team, he didn't contribute or make a big impact right away. Flash forward in time to his 8th grade year, he helped lead his team to the Florida District 12 championship. It's not the state championship, but it's a smaller tournament. That's still a great achievement for an 8th grader. When he was at this school in Florida though, him and his parents knew that if he wanted to reach his full potential and get to the NBA, he needed to get better and go to a better school. Going into his freshman season, this is when he first transferred to Montgomery Academy, which is also in Florida. He played there for his freshman and sophomore season, and a little fun fact is that he played beside current NBA star Ben Simmons. When he went to Montgomery, he kind of got lost in the spotlight because everyone was paying attention to Ben and some of the other players. I think that really affected his ego because growing up, he was always the star, but when he transferred to a big time school, he wasn't. It didn't seem like a good fit for him, at least in his eyes, so he transferred to Wheeler High School. I think him transferring was the wrong decision, but we'll touch on that later in this video because it has to do with something that's going on now. So at this point in time in our story, at the current moment we're speaking about, he's now a junior playing for another different high school. He finished his junior and senior season at Wheeler High School, and I'm not gonna lie, it couldn't have gone any better. During his junior year, this is when all the hype, recognition, attention, clout, whatever you want to call it, it came roaring in. He was now listed at 6'10", and everybody was falling in love with him. I'm not just talking about the college level, but NBA scouts were drooling over this guy. He wasn't your average 6'10", 215 pound power forward. Imagine you get on 2K and you create a 2K player that's almost 7 foot, but can also do a little bit of everything. Did he have the greatest jump shot? No, but it was good enough for a player that was almost 7 foot. He had good footwork, good IQ, and I'd even say he was pretty explosive for a guy that size. All you really really need to know about his game is that he was very quick for a big man. Athletic, could block shots, defend the rim, and do all that good stuff. One thing I want to touch on too, but it's somewhat obvious, is that he was a scoring big man. He wasn't just a defensive player. Remember, he was averaging over 25 points per game in high school. Every recruiting website out there had him listed as a 5-star recruit, and he was even as high as number 6 overall on 24/7 Sports. With him being listed as the number 6 overall player in high school basketball, some people were speculating that if he could go to the draft straight out of high school, he could be a first-round pick. That's how good EJ Montgomery was. He was the real deal. For his recruitment process, he could have picked and went to any college he wanted to. However, like many athletes, they want to go to the college that gives them the best chance of being a one and done. Ironically, and I guess you could say iconically, he chose to go to Kentucky. On April 9th in 2018, this is when he committed to Kentucky, and only 10 days later, on April 19th, he signed with them. And now, this is where our story takes a weird and very chaotic turn. When he first got to Kentucky, things were looking good for him. He was supposed to be a starter, play big time minutes, and put up big time numbers. But Coach Calipari and the entire coaching staff had different ideas. Things weren't all bad for him. He even had a double-double in the beginning of the season, with racking up 11 points and 13 rebounds over South Carolina. For the 2018 through 19 season for Kentucky, out of 37 games, he started 10 of them. Even though he did start some games, and even if he didn't start, he was coming right off the bench, he only averaged 15 minutes per game. I understand 15 minutes is almost half the game, but I don't think that's enough time to really produce. On the contrary though, here's the thing, when he was out there for those minutes, he wasn't doing anything. So I can see why Coach Calipari wasn't putting him out there. For the entire season, he averaged a very lousy 3.8 points per game. He also pitched in 4 rebounds and 0.4 assists, 0.4 steals and 1 block, but that's nothing. His field goal percentage was alright. He shot 48% from the overall field and 20% from deep. Don't pay too much attention to that because he wasn't a 3-point shooter. I'm just very blunt about it, and I say it how it is. To say this season was a disappointment would be an understatement. This was a flat out embarrassment of a season for what this kid was capable of. Remember, this was the 6th best overall player in high school basketball, a 5-star recruit, and a McDonald's All-American. And you mean to tell me the following year he only averaged 3 points per game? Come on now. Am I bashing EJ Montgomery directly? No, hear me out. I believe this was a combination of EJ and Kentucky's fault. It was both of their faults. It wasn't one or another. A lot of people try to blame Kentucky for these players not succeeding, but just listen to this. I understand that, let's say Kentucky doesn't develop kids good right away. Well, at the end of the day, that kid is still the guy going out there and playing the game. They can control that. So if they're not playing good, it's really hard to blame the coaching staff, at least in my eyes. Let's just look at the facts. They was giving him minutes, and he even started 10 games. To put it more into perspective, let's look at it this way. He was playing almost half the game. So if you doubled that and he played the entire game, he would only be averaging 6 points per game, and that's not acceptable. I just wanted to speak on that, but now in our story, here's where things really start to get interesting. Throughout that season and at the end of the season, people were criticizing and blaming Kentucky for him not succeeding. Everyone out there was saying they didn't prepare this kid good enough and they didn't give him the resources to succeed. I can see where they're coming from, but I try to look at it from both ways and both standpoints. I somewhat disagree with people blaming Kentucky for him failing in his first year. I do think it's a mix of both of them failing, but I think it's 90% EJ and 10% Kentucky. Anyways, let's continue on with this story because we have a long way to go. His freshman year was so bad, matter of fact, that he went all the way and so far down in draft boards, nobody had him getting drafted. Going into Kentucky, they had him as a lottery pick, and now, after 1 year, he was projected to go undrafted. It left him in a tough situation. He wanted to go to the draft, but he couldn't, so there was only one choice. And that choice was to return to Kentucky for 1 more year. And for his second year at Kentucky, I don't know if you could say things got worse, but they were mediocre at best. For the 2019 through 20 season at Kentucky, he started every game but 3. I've said this time to time, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm not a huge numbers guy, but the stats don't lie. For the entire season, he only averaged 6.1 points per game. Once again, we're talking about a 5-star recruit, a top 6 player in the country, Montgomery, and a McDonald's All-American. 6 points per game, and you started every single game and played most of the games? Come on now. He did pitch in over 5 rebounds and average 1 block, but that's nothing too crazy. From the field, he was somewhat efficient. He shot almost 52%, but his 3-point percentage was only 16.7. I don't really care about the 3-point percentage with this player because, like I've stated, he's not a 3-point sniper. The only good thing about this season was the fact that he was efficient and shot over 51%. Most of his shots, though, were coming at the rim, so that's why he was even shooting that high. What I just said is also what really hurt him and his draft stock, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. I'll touch on it now. So, the modern day NBA, if you're a center, power forward, unless you're a dominating force like Shaq, you gotta at least have a mid-range jump shot and even a 3-point jump shot. And although EJ wasn't that great at Kentucky, one thing scouts were looking for in college was for him to develop that jump shot. He was only listed at 6'10", and even that's tall for a normal person like us watching this, that's not that tall for the NBA. He's not going to dominate and overpower people at the NBA level with being under 7 foot, so therefore he needs a jump shot. And at Kentucky, and not just 1 year but 2 years, he proved and failed to prove that he did not have a jump shot. He couldn't stretch the floor, step out and hit mid-ranges consistently, and he couldn't hit threes to save his life. Was he a terrible shooter from the mid-range? No, absolutely not. Was he good though? No, absolutely not. And for his first 2 years at Kentucky, was he a bad player? No, he was far from it. He was an average player at Kentucky and an average college basketball player. But for his standards and how great he was in high school, that's a disappointment. Here's the problem with that. EJ Montgomery thought he was good enough to go to the NBA, and so did his dad. I don't care who you are. If you average under 5 points per game in 2 years at college, you're not good enough for the league. Me right now with 2 torn ACLs, I know I can go out there in college. If I'm playing the entire game, I can give you guys 4 to 5 points. I guarantee that. After his second season though at Kentucky, he made a decision to leave the program, and this ruffled a lot of feathers. Fans of EJ were mad and fans of the program were mad, and here's why. All the fans were disappointed yet again because Kentucky quote unquote let another player leave the program without truly shining at Kentucky. EJ's fans wanted him to go back and improve his draft stock and have a real good year of college basketball, and so did the Kentucky fans. Things were already not looking good. EJ was mad because he wasn't producing, the Kentucky fans were mad, and even Coach Calipari was mad. But to make it even worse, here's what his dad said. When Montgomery's dad was asked about why isn't he returning, he said this: "Why come back and waste a whole nother year?" I couldn't find a direct interview from that quote, but if you could tell and see the tone in his voice, he meant that in the most disrespectful way. He was basically saying and insinuating that Coach Calipari is wasting his son's college career and just wasting years in general. Before the draft even happens, there's a draft combine, and 105 potential NBA draft players are selected to come, and EJ didn't even get an invitation. So it really didn't even make sense for him to declare for the draft because he knew he was going to go undrafted. But I can see why he left, because I think going back to Kentucky would have been a waste of a year. If his first year and second year weren't good, what makes you think or believe his third year is going to be good? When the draft was approaching, most people was projecting he'd either find a two-way contract or go to the G League or go overseas. It was to the point where nobody believed he could get drafted. Before we go any farther, I do want to say something that's very intriguing to me the more I thought about it. If you've been watching the recent stories and recent videos, this is our third video within the last week or two where we're talking about a 4 or 5 star recruit that went to Kentucky and had a failure of a year. It almost had me thinking that, dang, maybe this is Kentucky's fault. And I know what you're sitting there thinking, yo Matt, you're right. There is a ton of Kentucky players that fail to succeed. But once again, remember what I preach on this channel. You gotta look at it from 2 standpoints and be open-minded. Even though there is some Kentucky 4 and 5 star recruits that do fail, or whatever you want to call it, there's a bunch of them that don't fail and they do have success. I'm not in the locker rooms and I don't know what goes on at that college, but they do produce a lot of NBA players. Not every 4 and 5 star recruit's gonna be an NBA player, and that's the bottom line. But there's a statistic that over 90% of them are. I couldn't find a percentage for it, but I know it's high. I just wonder what Kentucky's percentage is for getting a 5-star recruit and then getting them to the NBA. I'd say it's close to the national average, but it just looks worse on Kentucky because they get so many. So when one does fail and doesn't get to the draft, it looks bad on the coaching staff and Coach Calipari. There is instances where the players and the coaching staff don't get along and things don't work out, but I really try not to blame the coaching staff. At the end of the day, the player is the one that's going out there and playing, and they was giving EJ Montgomery minutes, so I don't think this is a case where you can blame the coaching staff. I could go on and on about that debate. Let me know in the comment section what you think about Kentucky. Is it the program or the player's fault? Back on topic with EJ himself, he declared for the 2020 NBA draft, and of course he went undrafted. His story's not going to end that easy though. After he got undrafted, he signed with the Milwaukee Bucks, but he was waived shortly after. I've never understood why these teams sign a player for 10 days or a month. It doesn't make any sense to me. They knew they was not going to keep EJ Montgomery on their roster, so why even sign him? After EJ got waived, he wasn't dumb. He realized he was not going to be an NBA player, at least for now. So a little after he got waived, on January 4th in 2021, instead of going to the G League or anything else like that, he announced that he was going to sign with a Lithuanian basketball team. This team goes by the name of Nevezis, I hope I'm saying that right, and they are part of the LBL, which is the Lithuania Basketball League. The ironic part about this is that nobody knows he's over there and everybody thinks he's not even playing basketball anymore. I can see why and understand why, because once you leave the US, there's not a lot of media coverage or media attention. I think him going to that team though is the right and smartest move, because I hate when players go to the G League because it's a death spiral. That's what I call it. And maybe if he goes overseas, he could dominate against weaker competition, but that hasn't exactly happened and played out the way he hoped it would. So far for the 2020 through 2021 regular season, for his team, he's only averaging 5.4 points per game. He's also adding 3.7 rebounds and under 1 assist. I'm not going to say those are bad stats. Okay, those are bad stats, but he was a stud in high school. It just doesn't make any sense to me. How do these players go from averaging 25, 30 points per game in high school to averaging 3 points per game in college and 5 points per game in the G League or overseas? It will never make sense to me, especially if you're getting the minutes and playing time. You may be putting on a different jersey, but that basketball you're shooting and the basketball goal, it never changes. As to what's next for EJ Montgomery, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say his basketball career will not be taking off anytime soon. I say that because there's facts and evidence that go with that. I'm not hating on the dude, I'm just trying to tell you how it is. He hasn't proved that he can play at the NBA level or even deserves a shot. Quite frankly, he hasn't even proved yet that he can play overseas. I'm wishing EJ Montgomery the best of luck, and I hope he turns his basketball career around, but it's gonna be hard. I only see 2 paths for him. Path number 1 and path A, he may go to the G League and be there for a while, or path 2, path B, he's going to be an overseas player for a long time. I'm wishing him the best, and hopefully he does get a shot at the NBA, but he's getting older and time is running out. Man, oh man, what a story. From the 6th best overall player in the country to averaging under 6 points per game. Wow. You hate to see it, but it happens with these athletes. Let me know in the comment section what you think about EJ Montgomery. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you're new to that channel, what are you doing? We're not on the road to 100K. We're on the road to 5 million, man. Join the family, hit that subscribe button, leave a like for more. And as always, thank you for 100K. I'm out, y'all. Let's be great. Peace.